I recently picked up an Elsie Silver book on a complete whim after seeing it recommended to me in the Kindle app for like the 1000th time. I figured it would be a fun palate cleanser, but I ended up having a shocking realization. The horse books that I thought I had outgrown when I was 12 still exist. They just grew up with me. Only now, instead of girl meets horse no one else can ride and she takes him off to win the big race, it's girl meets horse that no one else can ride and also his hot cowboy owner that no one else can ride. She still goes on to win the big race, but it's with the hot cowboy supportive boyfriend in the winner's circle with her. After that book, I had a full-blown horse girl nostalgic obsession with these books, and I fell down a whole rabbit hole full of cowboys, ranchers, bull riders, and country music stars. So I thought it would be really fun to sit down and talk about some of my yee-haws and my yee-nahs. So this is probably going to be a really long and chatty video. So just a quick disclaimer before we saddle up and ride off into the sunset together. There are going to be some spoilers for these books ahead. Some of them feature third act breakups, and I hate those, and I feel like they should all come with a warning label. So I will be mentioning that as we go ahead with the book reviews. And everything that I'm about to say in this video is completely my opinion and my opinion only. Our favorite cowboys may be different, but they can coexist peacefully at the same rodeo. I mean, there might be a bar fight or two, but you know how cowboys are. So starting off with the book that led me down this rabbit hole of ranchers to start with, I'm going to talk about Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This is her debut novel, and it's the first book in her Gold Rush Ranch series. And this book is about Vaughn Harding, who is a businessman who has just taken over his family ranch after his grandfather Dermot passes away. This is kind of a trend in cowboy books I've noticed, is that someone dies or retires and the series starts when someone takes over a family ranch. A scandal has recently affected the Gold Rush Ranch, and Vaughn is in full-blown recovery mode. There's not a lot of income coming in, and because of the scandal, the reputation of the ranch is in tatters. So he decides what he needs is to hire a trainer who has a really good reputation to start working on the ranch's horses and try to repair some of the damage that Dermot has done. He hires Billy Black to come to the ranch and train the horses, and he challenges her to train Double Diablo, or DD, who is a horse that no one else has been able to do anything with. In proper horse girl book fashion, DD is a stunning black stallion. He's her soulmate from the get-go, and he only responds to training with her. And of course, with Billy at the helm and working with Dee Dee so much, they quickly start winning all of these races as the underdog, and they're making a whole lot of money for the ranch all of a sudden. They soon attract the attention of a sleazeball who really wants this horse now too. The romance in this book it's fine. It's really not all that memorable, apparently, because all I really got out of it when I was thinking about it and thinking about this video is the relationship between Billy and Dee Dee. I really couldn't remember much that happened with Vaughn and Billy, except they have this horrible habit of just absolutely insulting the crap out of each other. I think the insults are supposed to be some sort of fun banter, but it just doesn't hit like it should, and it just comes off as a little cruel. Billy will not get her way with Vaughn, and she will resort to these insults that just feel mean and not fun instead of just joking around and having a good time. So that part was just annoying, and I kind of skimmed through some of that. The sleazeball from earlier ends up offering Vaughn an enormous sum of money for this wonder horse, And it's the kind of money that Vaughn would really have to be some kind of idiot to not at least sit down and consider. And this is when the dumb third act breakup for this book happens, because it's not a horse girl book unless someone threatens to take the Wonder Horse away from the girl. The thing about this book is I loved it because of the nostalgia factor for me. It reminded me so much of A Horse Called Wonder, which is the first book in the Thoroughbred series, written by Joanna Campbell in the 1990s. I read that first book and the subsequent series over and over again when I was a kid, and I just was always convinced that I was going to find my Wonder Horse and, we were going to win races, which is so stupid. So the nostalgia factor for those books of my youth really hit when I was reading Off to the Races, and that's why I connected so much with this book. But it really, on its own, without that, I probably would not have gone down as far of this rabbit hole as I would have otherwise. I definitely thought that Billy and Dee Dee had much better chemistry than she and Vaughn did, and it's supposed to be a romance novel. I don't 100% buy the happily ever after. I think it's a happily for now. If Elsie Silver wrote a follow-up and from 10 years after the end of this book and Vaughn and Billy are bitterly divorced, I would not be surprised. The girl cried so many buckets of tears over this horse during her and Vaughn's brief little breakup, and pretty much zero about Vaughn himself. And I'm not 100% sure that she didn't just get back together with him because of the horse and not because she loved him. I gave this book 3 stars. I would probably reread it at some point, but it would definitely be for the horse element and not for the romance, because that just did not hit for me at all. So at the end of this book, I was not as enamored by the whole ranch life and cowboys and horses that I would later become. I honestly was not sure about jumping into the next book in this series, which is called A Photo Finish. But I happened to have the audiobooks for both these two, and it was on my to-do list for 2026 to try to listen to as many of those audiobooks that I already owned as possible and just get them out of my TBR. So I went ahead and I was like, okay, this book wasn't terrible. I did have a fun time. Let's just go ahead and knock it off. It'll be fine. I ended up absolutely loving A Photo Finish much more than Off to the Races. I just completely had a different experience, 100%, and the setup for this book is bonkers. And I kind of ate it up. A Photo Finish is about Vaughn's brother from Off to the Races, Cole Vaughn, and Dee Dee's jockey, Violet. Throughout Off to the Races, we do see glimpses of Cole, and he's pretty cold and emotionless. Violet is very bubbly. She is the sister of the 4 main characters from Elsie Silver's next series, Chestnut Springs. And like I said, the setup for how this couple meets is just batshit crazy. Prior to the start of the book, Violet is posting nude photos of herself on a forum on the World Wide Web. Cole ends up engaging with her at some point, and due to these photos, they start a year-long pen pal-esque friendship, and he has no idea who she is or where she's from because she doesn't give his name, but he has seen a face photo of her. So when he shows up at the ranch to visit his brother and he goes to one of Dee Dee's races, he sees her and knows who she is immediately. After the race, he comes up to her and lets her know who he is and how he knows her, and she is horrified. As the book progresses, we find out that Cole is pretty reclusive and he just really wants his space. He's a former Marine who served in Iraq for 4 deployments, and he's just come back with a lot of trauma and a life-changing injury that he's really ashamed about and hiding from everyone he knows, especially his brother Vaughn. Vaughn, at this point, has moved into a smaller house on the property with Billy. She wants to stay in that house because it's right next to Dee Dee's paddock. Cole is alone in the family ranch house on Gold Rush, and it's just perfect for him because he has all the space he wants. He's like close enough to visit with Vaughn, but you know, he's got his own thing. So the main couple is forced together when Violet is injured in a horse race, and Billy insists that instead of hobbling up to her room over the stable, she stay in the family ranch house with Cole while she recovers, because this is the only house on the property that has accommodation where she has a bedroom and a bathroom on a main floor and she doesn't have to try to climb stairs. Cole ends up doing so much for Violet while she recovers, and they develop feelings. They're both secretly in love with each other, and the close proximity really forces them to examine those feelings. They end up working towards an actual relationship. This book, like the first one, does feature another freaking third act breakup, but I'll allow it this once. When Cole is a much younger person, he witnesses his father pass away on a racetrack. This has really caused him so much trauma throughout his life, and Violet's career as a jockey is really messing with his head. He's working through it himself in what seems like a really reasonable and mature manner. He's been working with a therapist for years, but when he kind of tries to discuss his fears and concerns with Violet, she throws a massive hissy fit and accuses him of being an asshole and overbearing. She just kind of storms off and says they're done, which I didn't get that vibe at all. I thought she was being really immature herself, so I did end up rating this 4.5 stars, docking it slightly from that 5-star mark because of this third act breakup. I just thought that Violet was so unreasonable here, that if they had just like had an actual conversation on why Cole was feeling like this, and she had just like taken a chill pill and heard him out, that would have totally been avoided. But overall, I really liked these characters and this story. It was really fun and I had a great time reading it, so I will definitely do a reread at some point. Will I continue this series? I'm really undecided. I don't have the audiobooks for the next 2, so I don't have like those on my TBR. I am very hesitant. The characters have been already introduced in the first 2 books, and I just don't really care about them. I'd kind of rather finish up the Chestnut Springs series that I've started instead, because I just feel like the writing in that series is a lot stronger from Elsie. Like I said, I think this was her first big project, and it just kind of showed for me. Like, I loved the second book, and the first one had its adorable moments, but overall I think this is a 2 and I'm kind of done series. I have too many books and too little time. So the next book on my list is Hit the Road, Cowboy by Raya Morris Edwards, and this is also another new to me author that I'd never heard of before. I found this book while searching through my Kindle recommendations, and it's a new book that just came out at the beginning of July. I basically just saw Cowboy in the title and took a chance on it. I mostly just cracked into it and didn't even read the blurb. So Cohen Taylor is a 36-year-old burnt out country music singer and producer. And his best friend, Jamie, is really concerned about how just depressed and withdrawn he's become. So Jamie suggests that Cohen take the whole summer off and arranges for Cohen to meet some family friends of his and rent a cabin on their ranch. Once Cohen arrives in Wyoming with strict instructions from Jamie not to even think about anything to do with work, he meets 24-year-old ranch manager Sabrina Maxwell, who has just taken over running Maxwell Ranch from her dad. And deja vu? So Sabrina is also going through a really rough time. Running the ranch on her own is this huge responsibility, and they are struggling financially. She's running herself into the ground, working as hard as she can to make sure they can make it as a family and keep the ranch going. The cash Cohen has given her to rent this cabin is a huge help to them, but Sabrina is still really concerned. Her dad is in his 70s and he is physically ailing, and there's also medical bills to be concerned about at this point too. So Sabrina really has a lot on her plate. At the start of the book, both characters are just absolutely exhausted, but for different reasons. There is a 12-year age gap between the characters, and neither one of them feel like they're in a place where they can start a relationship, but they are really drawn to each other. And one night when Sabrina is delivering a meal out to the cabin because Cohen has missed dinner, they end up having a one-night stand that ends up turning into something more for them. This is a book that is really spice heavy, and it's really well done. The author did a really good job of balancing the amount of spice in this book versus the plot. Jamie ends up contacting Cohen to let him know that they're having a music emergency. A really up-and-coming music star needs a new album written for him all of a sudden, and Jamie just needs Cohen back in the studio to write this album ASAP. But Cohen says that he is going to take the long way home and drive back to Nashville, and he invites Sabrina to come with him on this road trip because in one of their conversations, she admitted to him that one of her regrets was that she was 24 and had never left the state of Wyoming. As they travel across the US together, the book really shows them developing this friendship and emotional bond, and they're just having fun together on this trip. And I really loved that. I love it when books just really explore the developing relationship, and I just love a good road trip in general. So that part of the book was really fun. This book does have a mild third act breakup, but I don't even know if it's a breakup. Sabrina just gets really overwhelmed by how fast everything has progressed. And she does leave Cohen in Nashville and flies to New York to see her mom. Sabrina's father is really ticked off that she has run off with this musician cowboy guy, and he is constantly harassing her and calling her and threatening to call the cops, even though she's 24 and she's allowed to leave. So Sabrina is really upset and overwhelmed by her dad's behavior, and she just really wants to talk it and her relationship with Cohen out with her mom. So she heads there for a little while. The breakup, if you can even call it that, doesn't last very long, and Cohen and Sabrina are back on track very quickly. It did happen. But overall, I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was really well written, and I did enjoy the spice and the relationship and the characters. Would I continue this series? There isn't a series yet, but the book does seem to be setting up Sabrina's younger sister with Jamie, and I need that book yesterday. So absolutely, yes, I will definitely continue this when that book emerges. And I'm also probably going to look up more books from this author in general. I think this is the only cowboy-esque book that she's written, and I did read a review that said that it was kind of a lighter book for her, but I'm really interested in just seeing what else she's written because I did enjoy this one that much. Okay, moving on to the Lucky Rivers Ranch series. I started off with Cash, which has an enemies to lovers trope. The Lucky River Ranch series features the 5 Rivers brothers who live in the small Texas town of Hartsville. The brothers inherited Rivers Ranch from their deceased parents, and it's located next to Garrett Luck's much more successful and massive ranch, the Lucky Ranch. And the eldest brother, Cash, has been working as Garrett's foreman for the past 12 years. At the start of the series, Garrett Luck has just passed away, and Cash is heading into the lawyer's office for the reading of the will, and he is expecting to inherit the ranch as Garrett was estranged from his only daughter and had expressed desires to see Cash take on the ranch himself. Garrett's daughter Molly also shows up at the reading of the will, and she's expecting to inherit everything as well. To Cash's shock and horror, she does inherit the ranch as she expected, but there is a stipulation placed in the will that says that she must live at the ranch and participate in the day-to-day operation and running of things in order to inherit the land and access all of Garrett's money. She is pretty pissed about this, and she throws a tantrum in the car on the phone with her mother because she has started a luxury boot business back in Dallas, and she was really counting on this inheritance in order to fund her own business. She really wants to sell the ranch and use the proceeds to jumpstart her boot business, and this stipulation has thrown a wrench in all of her plans. Honestly, the tantrum that she throws just makes her come across really spoiled and entitled, and it didn't endear me to Molly's character at all. Meanwhile, Cash is furious. He has received a very small inheritance from Garrett as well, but it has no monetary value, and it's definitely not the full title to the ranch as he was expecting. He knows that Molly has no emotional connection to this land and that she just wants to sell up and move on. He's really upset because he saw Garrett as something like a second father, and he knew how much Molly's estrangement was a source of discontent with Garrett. He really regretted what had happened with his daughter and his ex-wife, and he really wanted to make amends, but Molly only asked for Cash and never came to visit the ranch or Garrett before he died. Cash is just really upset about how ungrateful she is and how, she doesn't belong at this ranch. She's just a city girl and she needs to go back to Dallas and get out of his way. Unfortunately, Molly does need to work with Cash pretty closely in order to learn the ropes of the day-to-day ranch operations, and it's kind of a mess. The book is trying to be enemies to lovers, but it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it situation. Cash starts out hating her for all the reasons I just mentioned, but she's hot, so that doesn't really last all that long. Molly also starts out hating him, but he's also hot, is a great dancer, and he looks really good in chaps, so that doesn't last long either. Molly starts to notice that Cash always seems exhausted, and she instantly goes into this caretaker mode despite her vitriol towards him, and this is when she starts to develop deeper feelings towards him. Molly decides that these deeper feelings are inappropriate and she just really needs to get over Cash, so she invites her friends with benefits to come visit her at the ranch from Dallas. She thinks that this will help her remind her that she has a life to get back to, and it's not at this ranch with Cash. Cash ends up beating the guy up and running him off, and then he gets all caveman-like with Molly, and they start sneaking around and knocking boots. At this point, the plot just kind of fades away, and it becomes mostly spice. Something like 2 weeks after they start sleeping together, he is professing his undying love for her, and like 5 minutes after that, they're engaged and they are combining Molly's ranch, the Lucky Ranch, with the Rivers Ranch to create the Lucky Rivers Ranch. And then Cash has partial ownership in all of it. Cash, Molly, and the friends with benefits situation kind of gave me the ick a little bit. I thought it was weird that Molly had these feelings for Cash and they were starting to get along and get to know each other, but then she still tried to just have sex with another guy, kind of almost in front of him. I gave Cash 2.5 stars. I really like Jessica Peterson's writing in this and some of the side characters, but the overall story just kind of lost me along the way. So Cash ends on a cliffhanger for the next book in the series, Wyatt. And cliffhangers like that always kind of bug me, but since Wyatt had already been published, I could live with it. I liked Wyatt's book so much better than Cash's. His trope is childhood friends to lovers, and that really worked for me in this book. Wyatt has been in love with Sally since they were teenagers, but he's been concerned his whole life that he wasn't good enough for her. He's got a really sunshiny type of personality, but he's hiding a really insecure interior, and a lot of that stems from losing his parents at a really young age. He's also known around town as the troublemaker River's brother. He works at the Lucky River Ranch with Cash and his other three brothers, but he also makes money on the side as a gambler, and he's known around town as a ladies' man. Sally has also been in love with Wyatt for years, but has likewise kept quiet about it. She left their small town to go to school to be a vet, and when she comes back for a visit, she discovered that her feelings for Wyatt have not gone away. He's still the man for her, but she's not in town for long before she has to leave to start a prestigious new job in New York State. So even though she's just always wanted more with Wyatt, she decides to lean into his womanizer reputation and see if they can have a one-night stand. Once I muscled past the minor ick I had of Sally approaching him for a hookup, this one was just really sweet and everything I was looking for in a romance. Because they already had a foundation of being friends for years, it actually just felt romantic instead of insta-lust as they progressed into actual relationship territory. Wyatt is finally able to open up to Sally about processing the loss of his parents, and his struggle with that loss just felt really raw and real. I'm just in a place right now where I really appreciate reading about characters who are struggling with grief and processing it. So that really made me connect to this book as well. Sally's also working through some issues on confronting the past. Her father has a lot of regrets on his own career trajectory, and he is pushing her really hard to not follow in his footsteps, and he's really wanting her to go off to this job in New York, and she's really not sure that it's the right career move for her. She wants to stay in Hartsville with Wyatt, and her father is just furious with her, but eventually she is able to confront him and just kind of do some soul searching to see if she's following her father's dreams or her own. We also have some glimpses of Molly and Cash throughout this book as they are working together to run their combined ranches. And I definitely liked Molly a lot better in this book than in her own. She's developed a real sisterly bond with Wyatt, and she really wants him to succeed with his relationship with Sally. So she helps him make some grand gestures to win the girl. And we are able to mark Wyatt safe from the awful third act breakup. Wyatt got a 4.5 star rating from me. So after that, I dived into Sawyer, which is the last book that I have read so far in this series. Sawyer is the third brother, and he is a single dad. Single parent books can be a real hit or miss for me, but after the success I had with Wyatt, I had so many high hopes for Sawyer. So the book starts with Sawyer out on the town in Austin having a night out with his brothers. We get a smut scene very early in the book when he meets Ava, who is a single mom who's also on a very rare night out with her friends, and she and Sawyer instantly connect and hook up. Sawyer and Ava have some amazing chemistry together, and the sex scene that we get at the beginning is actually really well done and pretty hot. The two are just relaxed and enjoying the time they have with each other, and at the end of the night, they don't end up exchanging contact information or last names. This is a problem though, because as the book progresses, neither one of them can stop thinking about the other, and they really regret not being able to contact them or know who the other person was. Fortunately, Ava is soon hired at a neighboring ranch to work with Sally, and Sawyer runs into her randomly at the preschool drop-off. They learn that they're both single parents and that their daughters are roughly the same age and get along great. But instead of working to build up a friendship based on being single parents and having a lot in common, they just dive immediately into having sex again while the kids are at school. Sawyer is the fixer of the Rivers brothers. He's always worried about doing everything he can to fix up his home, raise his daughter, and pull his weight around the ranch. He's described as being a workaholic who never takes a day off, and he doesn't like asking his family for help, even though they keep offering. But the minute he meets Ava, all that goes out the window, and he's never around the ranch anymore. Oh, and that babysitting y'all keep offering? Thanks, here's my kid. Ava has just gotten divorced from her ex, Dan, who was a terrible partner and husband, And she's not anxious to jump back into a new relationship at all, let alone get married again, which honestly, fair. I think that that is a natural response and she shouldn't jump into anything that quick. But my issue with Ava is she keeps talking about gender roles and how archaic they are and how she just wants freedom for men and the freedom and independence that comes with not being in a relationship. And that would be fine, except all she does is run off to ride her new cowboy. We never really see her do anything outside of being a girlfriend and a mom, which is fine, but she sometimes talks about that like it's the worst thing to have happened to her. Sawyer and Ava are a frustrating couple to me because they have all of these things in common. They have similar problems and getting together just does seem like a no-brainer, but they're really not spending a whole lot of time exploring their commonalities in any depth. It's all just physical. And she kind of backs off when she finds out he wants marriage and she doesn't. Sawyer really wants the white picket fence and a bunch of kids, and Ava's not even sure what she wants at this point. What made Wyatt so successful to me was the friendship and the camaraderie between the characters and the buildup of that relationship. And I feel like we could have gotten that with Sawyer and Ava, but instead, the author chose to lean into the insta-love and insta-lust. I think the initial hookup scene is something like 25% of the first part of the book. And after that, we have a time jump of 3 months, and then the romance takes place over the span of 2 or 3 weeks. It was just so fast, and the timing really didn't work for me, especially when we're talking about the parents of very young children that they're moving in together at the end of these 2 or 3 weeks. One of the conflicts that happens in this book is Ava's ex Dan is really concerned that how fast she's moving with Sawyer. And it's like, I understand that the ex is being painted as this deadbeat dad, and he is, but at the same time, it's like he has a point, and I don't not agree with him. Like, you can be a deadbeat and still have good instincts about things sometimes. So Sawyer got a 2-star from me. Will I continue this series? I am really unsure. I know I'm 3 books in and there's 2 books left, but Duke features an unexpected pregnancy, and I really don't love those. Although Ryder seems like it has potential. Jessica Peterson also announced a new interconnected series that I have some hope for. I'm pretty excited to read Colt, which is the first of that series. I think that it is following a neighboring / rival ranch, so that's fun. And before I move on from Jessica Peterson, I just want to do a quick honorary mention for Save a Horse, Keep the Cowboy, which is part of the Amazon original Summer 11 short story collection of summer romances. I really want to love this author, and I keep trying her books, and I think I'm 4 in, and 1 was amazing, and 3 just didn't work for me. And unfortunately, Save a Horse, Keep the Cowboy was another dud. The book is about Josie, who is a superstar country western singer. I think she's probably supposed to be in the level of Taylor Swift. She has a private jet and she's won a bunch of awards, and she's just really living the high life of country western stardom. She's been avoiding Hartsville for the last 6 years, ever since her ex Weston decided that he was going to listen to his friends and family and kind of wimp out on following her to Nashville to chase her dreams because real men don't follow their girlfriends or something to that effect. So they haven't spoken since, but Josie has to come back to Hartsville because her best friend and her brother Grady are getting married, and she's absolutely wants to join in to the festivities, and I believe she's officiating the wedding. Weston and Grady have to plot to win her back for Weston at a wedding event, and somehow it works. While celebrating the upcoming nuptials at the river, Weston tells her that he's been following every aspect of her career for the past 6 years, and even shows her that he's started wearing jewelry that she mentioned she liked during an award show. It doesn't really help him out, and she's still really lackluster about talking to him, and during a rehearsal dinner, she's very cold with him. So he decides to give his grand gesture, which is him getting on stage at the Rattler Bar and singing a song he wrote just for her. And this is in front of a whole crowd of wedding guests. He tells her that he's changed, that he was a coward 6 years ago and he's been in therapy to fix himself. And now he's ready to be the man that she needs and he can give her everything that she wants. And I'm like, it's been 6 years. Pick up a phone and call her. Why is he waiting for her to come to him? Like, that is just so dumb. I did like that we saw some supporting characters from the Lucky River Ranch series. None of the main characters are name dropped, but we do see Tallulah, the Rattler Bar owner. But otherwise, I am over here like, why? What do you mean that all he had to do was admit to stalking her and sing her a song, and then it's all okay? The girl needs higher standards, and if this happened to me, I would be dead from embarrassment. As it is, I couldn't handle the singing part and just skimmed through that, which is not something you really want to have your readers do in a 57-page novella. I am just really glad that I didn't buy the audio version and have to suffer through it. Also, a small side rant. The book is called Save a Horse, Keep the Cowboy, and there are no horses in this. Okay, rant over. I rated this 1.5 stars. Fortunately, I don't think it's a series, and I'm very hesitant to jump into any of the other Amazon Prime novellas in this collection. All right, so next I want to talk about a book that is ultimately on my list of yee-nahs. This is Dust Storm, and it is the first book in the Griffith Brothers series by Maggie Gates. This book probably wins an award for me for dumbest DNF reason ever, but I'll get into that more a little bit later in this review. This book is the story of Christian Griffith, who is a single dad, and he, again, like in Off to the Races, he has taken over the family ranch after his father retires. He has 2 daughters, and his schedule is just packed to the brim with caring for his children and running the ranch. For reasons I still don't quite understand, Christian's sister-in-law hires a woman named Cassandra to come to the ranch and help them discover new revenue streams. Even though it seems like Cassandra is a publicist and what this ranch really needs is a financial advisor. Cassandra has actually been exiled to this ranch after some sort of scandal with her former client, and the minute she arrives on the ranch with her fiance Trip and steps her little designer shoe down out of the rental car, she is just an absolute bitch to everyone around her, including Christian's kids and his mom. She's mad that she's in Texas and not in New York, and she is making it everyone else's problem. Despite this fact, everyone around her starts falling in love with her from the get-go because she's from New York, she's beautiful, she has shiny hair, and I guess they're from a small town and they don't get out much. I don't know. I live in Texas and we have beautiful people and shiny hair too, so I don't understand that part of the book, but okay. Christian also gives me the absolute ick from the get-go. He is just sitting on his horse, watching her and Trip arrive, and he sees her huge, sparkly engagement ring right after like seeing her curvy, voluptuous ass, and decides to ignore the fiance and the engagement ring because Trip clearly does not deserve this beautiful lady with the FU legs, which is a paraphrase, but it's basically what he's thinking to himself in the book. Like, he hasn't even met the fiance or this woman, and he's already making all of these judgments. So Christian is starting this book off hardcore insta-lusty, but he is also pissed that the sister-in-law has just dropped this woman on his lap, and he's just irritated that he has to deal with her when he already has so much on his plate. He takes the couple to the ranch's guest cabin where Trip is going to stay overnight with Cassandra and then leave back to New York in the morning. But whoever was assigned to clean the cabin has absolutely failed at this task because the door has fallen off of its hinges, the cabin is full of dust, and a baby cow, who's one of the daughter's pets, has taken up residence on the couch in the cabin. While Christian is also evaluating the situation and looking over this cabin, a little snake slithers out from under something, and Cassandra deals with this situation in the incredibly mature fashion of running out of the door, screaming that she's flying immediately back to New York and she's quitting this job, only to find that Tripp is driving off in the rental car and just abandoning her there. Once Tripp is gone, Christian begrudgingly brings Cassandra to his own home and he puts her up in a spare guest room. When his daughters come home from school later that day, they act like this angel has just absolutely descended upon their house. But Cassandra makes no bones about the fact that she does not like kids, and she keeps giving them some really awful attitude, despite the fact that they are literal children, and Christian is constantly reminding her to watch her mouth. So, talking about the dumbest DNF reason on the planet, I really gave this book my best shot, despite the fact that I hated both the main characters. But after Cassandra finally shows a little actual emotion about Tripp just dumping her at the ranch, Christian decides to take her writing to help get her out of her own head and help with her mood. On page 85, I crashed out when I read this sentence. My boot had barely touched the syrup before my ass was in the front of the double-seated saddle. Excuse me, what now? I grew up as a horse girl. I have never heard of a double-seated saddle, so I had to Google this, and what I found was one of the unsexiest pieces of tack I have ever seen. Not that I've ever looked at something and said, oh my god, that is a sexy saddle anyway, but what the hell? But the ones that I've found online that I'll put a picture up somewhere, they look like they have like a full-size seat for an adult, either on the back or the front, and then the second seat is sized for a toddler butt. So I have a lot of questions on how a grown woman is fitting in this thing. I didn't see a whole lot of options for like adults. I could go on at length about this situation in this book because seriously, crash out. I literally just stopped reading the book and just sat there and like stared at Google images for like 10 minutes because I don't know. Like I said, dumb. But even after that, I did try to struggle on, but then Christian is trying to teach her about horses and riding, and he tells her that she needs posture like a princess and hips like a whore. And given that this woman has a fiance and she is his actual employee, I was done. I couldn't do it with Dust Storm anymore. I didn't like any of the characters. I feel like my favorite one in this whole book, in the 85 pages that I read it, was Tripp, because he successfully found a way to dump Cassandra off at this ranch in BFE and get away with it. I just, like, maybe something will change and I just gave up on it too soon, but I didn't feel like there was any chemistry at all between these two main characters, and she is being awful to children that belong to a man that she is romantically interested in, and I don't understand how that's gonna work. I'm sure there's some sort of third act situation where she gets some redeeming qualities, but for me, life is too short and my TBR is way too long for me to stick around to find out. So, Dust Storm's overall rating was a DNF. Will I continue this series? Yeah, probably. I have read the blurb for the second book, and it does sound interesting and like something I might enjoy, so I will definitely give it a shot. But it is not super high on my to-do list. When I find a book like this and it's the first book that I've ever read by an author, a lot of times I do like to try to read at least another book by that author and see if it's the book or maybe their writing style. So yeah, I will give it another shot. I think Maggie Gates has written a couple of other series that might be interesting too. So, but I will probably do a follow-up Cowboy video at some point, and I will keep you updated. Okay, so this next one is going to take a little bit of a hear me out. Just we listen and we don't judge. This is Cowboy Colony Mail Order Brides by Ursa Dax. I have been seeing these covers all over my Kindle and my Goodreads for the past few months, and I always assume that it is one of those low quality 90% smut books, and I just have not been in the mood for one of those kind of books in a long time, so I have been avoiding these. Not that there's anything wrong with one of those kind of books. Like I said, it's just, I'm a mood reader and it's not something I've been into. But I did finally say, screw it. I am gonna give it a shot. I am in the cowboy mood. I will just see what's going on with these. And holy crap, I have been completely wrong about these books. I am so glad I finally sat down and read them. Yes, there is spice in them, but it is much less predominant throughout the story than I was expecting. There is a lot more plot, and the spice makes sense to the plot instead of it just being there for the sake of adding, you know, more smut to it. I've read Married to the Alien Cowboy and the next one in the series, and both of them are just really sweet and romantic, and along with the spicy smuttiness. This first book is about Sylar, who is kind of a loner, grumpy cowboy on a distant penal colony planet. The planet is the perfect climate for a lot of the food the homeworld wants to be grown, but no one actually wants to go and farm on this planet because the conditions are very harsh. It's very hot during the day, very cold at night, and it's dusty and dirty, and there's lots of predators. So the homeworld has decided this penal colony is the solution. All of the convicts they send are very young boys, and they all end up being adopted by older convicts that are already on the planet until they can grow up and have their own farm. So each convict is given their own ranching operation, and they are quite large. They are all able to grow crops and raise cattle and sell the products back to the homeworld for a decent wage. So they are making a good living. They're just not allowed to leave the planet. Sylar and 4 other cowboys are brought into their warden's office, and they are informed that the homeworld has decided to send them all a bride. This is likely to keep the cowboys happy and content, because while they can't leave the planet, they could always decide, hey, I'm not going to ranch or farm this hard anymore, and stop sending products back to the homeworld. So they're going to try this bride program out. So all of the cowboys are initially very confused and concerned by this announcement. They've all been sent to this world as such small children that they really don't have much memory of how ladies on their homeworld would act or look like, much less know how to take care of them or provide for their needs. But despite the misgivings, most of them do decide to accept a bride, even after they learn that they're going to be given human brides instead of their own species, because no one on their home planet will stoop so low as to come and live on this horrible world with them. Sylar is matched with Cherry, who starts the book off in deep, deep crap after she made a series of really bad decisions after her mom passes away. She took a loan from a crime boss, and she escalates the situation when a minion comes to collect his payment that she doesn't actually have. She hits him with her antique frying pan, and she thinks she kills him, so she needs a way off this planet as soon as possible. And when she's running from the minion who suddenly wakes up from being dead, She sees an ad for the mail order bride program and decides that's her perfect opportunity. She's gonna jump at any chance to get off this world to a remote planet to be safe, even if she has to marry a stranger and a literal alien in order to do it. So the bride program is conveniently very easy for Cherry to join, and she ends up there with 2 other human women, and she learns her fiance's name, but freaks out when she discovers that the program is designed to help them acclimate to the planet and the culture, so they're not going to be leaving for the next 3 or 4 weeks. She needs to get off the planet now, so she finds a supply shuttle that is going to be headed to this planet and convinces the pilot to let her head there early. So she meets Sylar, and this is a insta-love situation from the get-go. But to me, in this context, it kind of made sense when you have someone who hasn't seen a lady in his entire adult life. There's a lot of miscommunication between Cherry and Sylar at first, but it's mostly due to a language and cultural barrier. And honestly, I found it adorable and really funny in places. He's also very unexperienced in the spice realm, so that also leads to some kind of funny situations. The third act conflict involves Cherry's goon from earlier, so we are marked safe from a third act breakup in this book. Yay! I feel like this would be a really good series for someone if they're unfamiliar with the alien romance genre and they want to dip their toe in. We do have some creative anatomy going on, if you know what I mean. But for the most part, they're not all that different from humans, so it does kind of seem like it's a good starter point. I gave this book 5 stars. I have no notes. It was just adorable and fun, and I had a really good time reading it. I think I finished it in like 3 or 4 hours. It was a pretty quick read. Would I continue this series? I think there's 7 or 8 books in the series, and absolutely. I've already read the second book, and I didn't want to just dive into that one as well because this video is already getting really long, but I also gave the second book in the series a 5-star. That one has a golden retriever and a girl that maybe didn't necessarily want to get married, but felt kind of pressured into, again, leaving the planet and leaving her family, and marriage was her best option. Their love story was also really adorable. So I just really enjoyed both the books that I've read in this series, and I already have number 3 lined up to go. I just got to get to it. So definitely be continuing as soon as possible. If you have made it this far in this video, thank you so much for joining me while I rambled about ranchers and alien cowboys and bitchy protagonists. If you have any cowboy romance recommendations for me, drop them in a comment below. I would love to hear them and check out new authors and new books. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Bye!